The ocean conveyor belt and the Gulf Stream. These ocean currents have a direct impact on our lives. They shape our weather, our climate, and much more. The ocean currents and wind systems move heat from the equator to the poles and function like a massive engine for the global climate. Within the oceans, there are many different and numerous currents. The so-called ocean conveyor belt is vital for our climate. This term refers to a network of currents that allow four of the five global oceans to exchange water with each other. They create a worldwide circulation system. This conveyor belt is also known as thermohaline circulation, where thermo relates to the temperature and halane to the salt content of the water. Both of these factors determine the density of the water. While wind moves some water masses, the primary driver of their movement is the varying densities of the global oceans. Warm water has a lower density and rises while cold water always sinks. Water density also increases with a higher salt content. Near the equator, intense heat from the sun causes significant evaporation and thus a rise in the water's salt content. This is exactly where the Gulf Stream begins its journey. The Gulf Stream is very important for the European climate. Its length of 10,000 km makes it one of the largest and fastest currents on Earth, and it is very warm. At roughly 2 degrees, it brings up to 100,000 nsm3 of water per second toward Europe. A steady wind, the southeast trade wind, pushes warm surface water to the northwest into the Gulf of Mexico, where it heats up to 30 degrees Celsius. The rotation of the Earth in the west winds then direct the Gulf Stream toward Europe and split it all up. One part flows south, another east to the Canary Current, and a third part flows north where it releases a lot of heat into the atmosphere as the North Atlantic Current. The water becomes colder there. Its salt content and density rise because of evaporation, and it drops down between Greenland, Norway, and Iceland. There we also find the largest waterfall on Earth, the so-called chimneys, roughly 15 kilometers wide pillars, with water falling up to 4,000 nsm, 17,000 nsm3 of water per second, or roughly 15 times more water than is carried by all the rivers in the world. This creates a strong maelstrom, which constantly pulls in new water and is the reason that the Gulf Stream moves steadily toward Europe. Countless species use the Gulf Stream as a means of transport on their trips from the Caribbean to northern areas. But it doesn't just bring us animals. An enormous quantity of warm air also comes with it. To produce the same heat that it brings to the shores of Europe, we would need 1,000 nuclear power plants. That's why we also call the Gulf Stream a heat pump. Without it, the temperature would be significantly colder here, at least 5 to 10 degrees. Instead of lush fields, we would have long winters and sparse ice-covered landscapes in Europe. In the last few years, scientists and pundits in the media have repeatedly expressed the fear that the Gulf Stream could come to a standstill due to climate change. Because if the polar caps actually melt, the salt content in the water off Greenland would fall, as would its density. The North Atlantic Current would no longer be heavy enough, and so it wouldn't sink as usual. In the absolute worst case, that would bring the Gulf Stream, our heat pump, to a stop. Some climate experts also assume that climate change could compensate for this effect. We know that it can be normal for the climate to change by looking at the development of the Earth over the last few million years. There are both ice ages and warm periods. During the last ice age, a gigantic flood of melting water crippled the heat-bringing North Atlantic Current, covering the northern hemisphere in ice. Scientists have different views on the impact that climate change will have on the global ocean conveyor belt. But one thing is absolutely clear: when the climate changes, then the complex system of ocean currents and winds, which has remained fairly stable since the last ice age, will change in ways that we do not yet fully understand. If this story changed the way you look at the currents of our world, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the natural history that they tried to bury. Let's protect our future. The next deep-sea mystery will be revealed soon.